I got a few questions. Questions. Where do you get your protein from? Isn't it expensive to be vegan? Questions. I got a few questions. Haven't we evolved to eat meat? It's natural. I got a few questions.
Shh. It's vegan. Thank you guys for joining me on another episode. My name is Manny and I am your host. And today I want to talk about letting go. It seems like letting go has become the new success. And I want to kind of dive into that and understand what it actually means and why are so many people letting go of things, and how much letting go is too much and how much letting go is too little, and is letting go even effective? And by letting go, I mean letting go of habits and all that stuff. So let's get into it. I want to start off with a quote by Will Smith. He said that, I'm paraphrasing, he said that you may not be responsible for how you were raised or how you were treated when you were younger, but you are responsible for fixing it as you get older. And that's true. That is really true. At least that's what I really, really believe. And I do believe that with self-reflection and understanding of where our habits come from and our beliefs come from, we can take inventory or take note to what is our responsibility. But if we don't ever take an inventory or evolve or correct the things that aren't working for us, then we continue to be blind to this idea that we're victims in a situation that we have no control over. And so when we're talking about letting go as being the new success, like you're successful if you let go of certain things, I'm talking about letting go of concepts, beliefs, relationships, goals that no longer serve you. And, taking an inventory of these unaccomplished goals can really help you determine if these concepts have to evolve, or do we just have to let them go altogether? But everybody's unique, and I definitely would suggest everyone to kind of get a feel for what they believe letting go is and what they believe they should be letting go of, or at least evaluating. But I do believe in my heart that if we can communicate with ourselves effectively and honestly, that we can start to understand that some of the habits that we have, some of the beliefs that we have, some of the reactions that we have toward life and toward the world no longer serve us, then we may be able to evolve past them. But we can't do that if we're not willing to admit that the way we believe is wrong, or our habits are wrong. And I don't mean wrong as in like negative. I mean wrong as in they don't serve you anymore. They were probably an outdated concept that your parents bestowed upon you. And somehow you just decided that's going to be the mirror or the lens in which you view the world. And the funny thing is sometimes we don't even decide that that's the lens we're going to view the world. Because as we're growing up as kids and we're developing our own habits and our beliefs toward the world from our parents or from the people around us, we generally just do it unconsciously. And as we get older, we just react. And we don't understand actually where these beliefs come from, because we're just in the process of doing versus evaluating why we're doing what we're doing. And I like to think every 10 years, you could do it every 5 years. Take a long list of all your beliefs and your habits and see if they serve you today. And I guess a great example would be, for me, say I want to save $300 for like a new pair of headphones so I can make these amazing podcasts that you guys can listen to. So logically, I understand the concept of saving money. Sure, I can intellectually know ways to save money. Like I can cut back on spending, I can take a second job, I can create another source of income through either selling some sort of materials online, writing an ebook, or whatever it is, or take, help somebody out with different creative aspects of their business, since I've been doing it for a long time. So that can be a way I can make additional money. And however, when it comes to the long-term execution of the savings, so I'll get this second job, I'll start to save money, and then all of a sudden something kicks in, something inside you. It's when you get into that moment of weakness. And by weakness, I mean you're saving and you're not really spending as much time with your friends and family, or you're not spending a lot of time doing the things you're used to doing that you really, really enjoy, like the leisures in life. And then that's when the saboteur kicks in. That's when that inner voice starts to prey on those thoughts of I would rather be spending more time with my friends. I would rather be spending money, living in the now. I'd rather be spending my money now than saving it. What if I die? Or what if I never reach that goal? That's the inner saboteur. And what it's doing, it's using your insecurities or your weakness, quote unquote, your weakness against you. It's using a human weakness, which is just normal. When we binge do anything for too long, we start to feel like we're being deprived. Some of us are stronger than others in certain areas, but on some level, we're all feeling the sense of, we're all feeling like we're deprived in some way, in some subject matter. And so if I were to have been getting a second job, that means I would have to cut back spending more time with my husband and the great times we like to have together in the morning, because those are so precious. And when that moment of weakness kicks in, my inner saboteur is going to use that against me. It's going to say stuff like, if you don't really need this job, you'd rather spend time with him. You'd rather spend time, having those moments and creating those moments. Or it will say, you don't need to save that money. Wouldn't you rather just go on a vacation? Wouldn't you rather just use that money for something right now? You can enjoy the moment right now. And it's so tantalizing. It's so addicting. It's so seductive. And it gets you. And it's at that moment that we need to evaluate where this is coming from. Where is that inner saboteur coming from? Now, most people would say, get rid of it. Get rid of those thoughts. Abolish those thoughts. Walk away from those thoughts. But what I like to do, I like to really believe that if we can really kind of take an inventory of where these beliefs come from, we can get to the core roots of their cause. And then we may not be able to extinguish them, but at least we'll get an understanding when they come up, and we'll probably start to realize that they're probably not our thoughts. They're probably not our beliefs. We probably acquired them when we were younger. And therefore, I like to do this thing when I realize these are not my beliefs and they're actually getting in my way. I like to do this thing about giving them back, metaphysically or metaphorically to the people in our lives, giving those beliefs back to my parents or to the people in my lives that I acquired them from. And this isn't to say that the people we're giving them back to are bad people because they instilled those self-sabotaging behaviors. What it does say is that they don't work for me. I am who I am, and these beliefs do not serve me anymore. These ideas don't serve me anymore. And so it's the same situation when it comes to our goals. Like when you were younger, you probably had a goal to be, this using a crazy example, be a physicist that's going to be the first man to land on the moon. The first man to land on Mars, or the first woman to land on Mars. And so you had a goal to be that. That was your goal. You wanted to do that. And life gets in the way. Concepts change. Your world changes. It crumbles. It grows. Whatever it does. You have a baby. You get married. Whatever it is that creates that concept, that idea, that sidetrack. And so you're sidetracked from your goal. So you still haven't accomplished that goal. Now, I'm not saying you have to give up on your goals, but what I'm saying, when do you let go of that version of that goal? When do you not take an inventory or a stock of what's in your life now, and how do you accomplish that goal within the structure of your current situation? When do we do that? Because I think most of us, we have these things called midlife, quarter-life crises, because we feel like we haven't accomplished the goals we sought out to accomplish when we were younger. But we don't take in consideration just how our life has expanded, how many people we have let in, how many new perspectives, how many new interests that we have gained because of growing up and changing. And sure, we haven't accomplished that goal, but now we become the inner saboteur. We become the inner saboteur. We tell ourselves, oh, it's because of this person, or it's because I had a kid, or it's because I had to put my husband or my wife through college, or I had to spend money over here. And instead of taking inventory and realizing what we've gained in our lives, we actually start to demonize all the things that we actually value in life, which is our family, our friends, maybe our job, maybe not our job, the goals that we have accomplished. And when you do that, you make an enemy out of those goals. And the only way to accomplish that goal when you were younger, as an adult, is to run away, to separate yourself from everything that's blocking you and stopping you. And what I would suggest is when do we let go of that old concept of that goal and reintroduce that goal into our new life, and have that conversation with our spouse, have that conversation with our kids about the goal we want to accomplish, and listen to their input. Now listen, it's not about taking every word that they say as your own, but it is about respecting and appreciating the people that we let come into our lives and saying, how can this person help me reach that goal? And the only way you can do that is by communicating that you're feeling stuck. You're feeling like you haven't accomplished this one thing in your life. But if we keep living in the illusion that the past is somehow where we were the most successful because we were able to be more ambitious and we were able to be more spontaneous, we had so much more energy in the past, we're never going to appreciate where we are now. Because in the past, you probably didn't have the same level of responsibilities. You probably didn't have the same level of XYZ, but you do now. And when you don't take an inventory of that, you tend to not really appreciate where you are today. When it really was very simple, you probably could have just presented the idea or the goal that you had that person or those people in your life probably weren't even aware of. But when we keep that inside of ourselves and we don't take an inventory of who we are today in reference to our goals that we want to accomplish, we want to do things like have a midlife crisis and we want to fall apart and we want to blame the people in our lives. We want to get rid of everything in our life that mirrors our quote unquote failures toward this goal. And I guess a great example for that would be, like I said, if somebody wanted to be the first person to land on Mars or the first physicist to bring someone to Mars or whatever it is you think you want to do in your life. But that's a huge idea and it takes a lot of work, but then life gets in the way and all of a sudden you start to have different values and different stuff. And how do you check in with yourself and say, okay, so I still have this goal. I still want to accomplish something like it, but what does it look like now? How do I revisit that goal and how do I make it work for my current life? And all you have to do is be honest with yourself and say, I still have this goal. However, I also have these other beautiful values I have in my life now, and how do I make them work? I do not suggest anybody to abandon their goals because your goals and your desires will chase you. They will chase you until they find resolution, meaning they are met, or you have resolved them from their position within inside of you, and you no longer want to accomplish it, and you feel okay 100% with it. But until you feel 100% with it, it's always going to nag at you. And if we don't really have that conversation with ourselves and really understand where that nagging feeling is coming from, we're going to initially just blame the people in our lives, blame the circumstances in our lives, blame the situations in our lives. So when it comes to letting go, I would say when it comes to letting go, like when should you let go of your goals? I think that really you need to just take an inventory of your current life and mirror it to your goals and see how you can accomplish it. And do not compare it to your past. When you initially created this goal, your life was completely different. You were completely different, and you have to honor and appreciate that. And like I said, if the more you dismiss your current self for your past self, as somehow your past self was better than who you are today, the less you're going to appreciate yourself, the people around you, your levels of success that you've accomplished so far, and any minute detail of your current level of success in your life today. Okay, so that's that about letting go. And so I guess we want to just basically just discuss, where does too much letting go or where does too little letting go come in? And it's not really, like with me, one of the hardest things was having to take inventory of myself. Of every time my husband would bring up the idea of saving money, I'd get really offensive and I wouldn't understand where it was coming from. And anybody can replace money with any other topic if you want to relate to this, but he would bring it up and then I would get really offended and I don't know why. And for so many years, I chalked it off as, well, people who save money or, they overthink about money. They don't think about the other things about life. They don't think about love. They don't think about all this other stuff. I would tell myself everything instead of actually asking myself, why do I have such an ill feeling when this is brought up? And this went on for years. This stuff can go on for years. And what it did, it stopped him from being able to have that open communication with me about money, even though for him, it wasn't a sore subject. And he loved talking about how we can save and how we can save and accomplish our goals that we wanted to do. But for me, it was a touchy subject. And I didn't realize exactly where it came from. I didn't realize the source. And then one day, I kind of got sick of myself. I think that's what happens. You get sick of yourself. You're like, I can't do this anymore. I really can't. I really have to figure a way out of this. I can't have the same repeated patterns over and over again. And just like, Einstein said, same thing, different results. You're insane. Blah, 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 blah. And so I asked myself one day, okay, why do you feel this way? Why are you so triggered? And how can you stop reacting when he brings up the idea of saving money, because clearly he's been expressing it to me for a long time, and he really finds the value in saving and talking about it and really like creating a plan to execute it. Where me, the very idea of saving just didn't sit right with me. It actually made me mad and angry, and it was completely opposite of his belief about it. And he didn't want to make me upset, so he would suppress his own feelings about bringing it up just to keep the peace. And after so many years of that, you start to believe, and you start to believe somehow you're wrong. And I didn't realize that was happening to him, because I was so in my own feelings and in my own emotions, and I wasn't ready to let go of that belief, or even to evaluate it and look at it more deeply and say, why do I feel this way? I was just on this trip like, I'm right, you're wrong, you're just all obsessed with money, this is all you want to do. And I realized that's not his character, but that was in retrospect, you realize that. But in the moment, you are defensive, your ego is out, and you're ready to fight. And the best way so generally speaking, if you ever get that triggered by something emotionally, it's worth looking into, especially if it's within your partner relationship, or your sibling relationship, or within your close-knit family, your kids, your siblings, or your partner. That is worth looking into. I tell everybody, if you feel that triggered by something, really look into it and ask yourself, why do I feel this way? And you'll be surprised if you are honest with yourself 100%. If you are completely honest, the best you can be, you'll be surprised that it had nothing to do with that person and with that person's attitude toward anything. And it will release so much stress and so much anguish. And now I'm not saying that this happens overnight. This thing happened over a series of like 6 to 7 years. Slowly I progressed and got better, and then I fell back. And so I had to ask myself that question, why do I feel triggered by this? Where does my belief about money come from? And it took me back to my childhood, where in my childhood we didn't have a lot of money, and money was always a sore topic. And if you brought money up, you were greedy, or you were punished. Not greedy, you were punished, or it was met with aggression and anger. And the idea of talking about money made me feel that way. And I didn't know that I took on a belief of my parents. And as I mentioned before, once you become aware of that and you decide, I'm going to acknowledge this, only then can you truly start to see progress. And I did. And I did see progress. I acknowledged it, and it was so hard because I was in my ego space in my head, like, I'm right, there's no way, this is how people are. And then I started to look at my track record, and I started to realize that I did want to save for so many things, and I would just sabotage the savings because I had this ill feeling when I felt like I was sacrificing my a good time for saving money. And that concept alone was so devastating for me. And it debilitated me, and my inner saboteur took advantage of that, and it used that to justify me spending all my money, or me arguing with my husband about this very sensible, logical concept of saving money to accomplish a goal or to do something in your life. And when I realized it was a belief that came from my parents, I had to say, you know what, this isn't my belief. I had to let it go. I really had to kind of almost have like a ceremony of letting it go and giving it back to them, because it didn't belong to me. And I had a different concept, and I knew I did, because I had an understanding of how to make money and how to save money. But when it came to the execution, that's when the emotions get involved in it, that's when my inner saboteur, that's when those excuses start to come up. That's when I would have those arguments and those debates about the validity of the concept of saving money. And at that moment, I realized, what am I arguing with? I'm arguing with the past. I'm arguing with a belief system that doesn't serve me and doesn't belong to me, no longer serves me. And I gave it back. And ever since then, I've been on an upward progression to being able to save money, and I can have great conversations with people about money, and it's more intellectually based. And when it gets emotional, I can feel the trigger inside me, because like I said, it's never really gone. But now you have a sensory of like, oh, okay, I know this feeling. This isn't that person. And it almost starts to begin to happen automatically. And your life starts to get better and lighter, and you feel like you can have almost like any conversation with anybody about anything, because you're not taking everything so personal. And how I learned to do that was really saying, I don't like this feeling. I don't like the way I'm making this person feel. And it's really about saying this person being happy is of high value to me. And what I'm reacting to in terms of money and savings is not of value to me. And I looked at that for what it was and said, I'd rather have him happy than me continuously misguide myself through an old belief system. And my life changed from there, and it was great. And so if you're ever looking to like, truly affect any of your beliefs, if you feel like something's getting in the way, something's like no longer serving you, and you tried it over and over and over and over and over again, or if you want to accomplish something, like you can even say, I want to lose weight. So you want to lose 50 pounds. And every time you get the goal written down, you're ready to go. You got the protein shakes, you got the gym membership, you got all of that concept down. And you're like, I'm going to do this. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to do this. I got this year, 2000 and whatever. It's my year. And all of a sudden you go to the gym once. Awesome. You got all that fuel energy. Gym twice, 3 times, maybe in a week. You go to the gym for a week. You're like, I'm doing this. And then all of a sudden somebody says, let's go to somewhere. Let's go on a trip. And you're like, well, I had to go to the gym. I promised myself I wouldn't break the chain of like the 60 days or whatever. And so so what happens, you start to have that conversation with yourself. That inner saboteur is like, no, don't worry about it. It's just one day. It's just, that you can't break that chain because you're trying to create a habit. You're trying to change your belief system. So your inner saboteur tells you, no, it's just one day. So you end up doing it. And you end up going on the trip. And everything falls apart quickly. And then you start to beat yourself up. You can't do this. I can't do this. I'm never going to lose weight. I'm never going to be healthy. And you start to live with that idea that this is who you're going to be. And a year passes by. You want to try it again. The same thing. And you now have this defense. You have this, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to hang out with my friends. I got to eliminate all distractions, which, by the way, is nearly impossible. But this is what we feel we have to do in order to get anything done. And so we try that method. And it works for a week. Works for 2 weeks, maybe even 3 weeks. And all of a sudden, you start to feel deprived. You start to convince yourself that you're not living life to the fullest, that you're just paying way too much attention to the way you look. I mean, that voice will tear you down. It'll tell you in all aspects, go have that donut. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about this. Don't worry about that. And you want to be healthy. Whatever that looks like to you, you wanted to do this and you knew you did. But in that moment, it does not matter what contracts you signed, you will break them because your inner saboteur finds the value in telling you that there's something better you can be doing. And that's at that breaking point. That's at that point at our weakness, at our lowest point. And that's when we're trying to change any habit about ourselves, whether it's saving money, whether it's losing weight. And it's at that moment. This is the same moment I had when I realized what I was doing wasn't working. And I have to try something different. I am so sick of myself. So somebody who's trying to lose weight, you get to this point, you're like, I'm sick of myself. Why do I keep doing this to myself? And instead of thrusting forward, I would suggest to you, instead of thrusting forward and trying to start another regimen, start another diet plan, don't worry about that. You need to start to ask yourself the questions, who is this voice and why do I keep sabotaging myself? Where is this coming from? Because when you take that inventory, I promise you, you will eventually get to the root of where this belief comes from and how it's dictating your habits and affecting your goals that you want to accomplish. And when you do that, you can rip out that root and you can introduce another belief to yourself, and it'll affect your habits and then ultimately affect your goals outcome. But you can't do that if you do not hand back that belief that doesn't belong to you, that you're not worthy of losing weight, that you're never going to lose weight, that people who go to the gym too much are superficial, they're egotistical. When you have those beliefs running in your mind, they will always win. And you will only be successful if you fight so hard, but you're going to have to fight for the rest of your life. And that's not what life is about. You need to first find the root cause of why you have that belief in the first place. Who does it belong to? And again, this does not happen overnight. This happens over a period of years, if not decades, of sabotaging yourself and getting sick of yourself. But let me tell you, never give up on yourself. So when we're talking about letting go of habit, we're letting go of the beliefs that no longer serve us. And the way we know that is we are so tired. We're so exhausted of having a goal every year and every month and not accomplishing it. And it's all because we haven't really taken time to evaluate the origin of the belief itself and then giving it back to the people or the person or the situation that bestowed it upon us. It does not serve us anymore. It may have served us in the past. It doesn't anymore. So if you can, when you start to get that feeling inside you saying that I'm just going to go have a donut, whatever, people who go to the gym are just superficial or whatever it is you want to say that gets you out of the idea of like, I got to keep going at this. You need to really sit with yourself. You deserve it. You're worth it. You're really worth getting to the root of all these issues that we have, these beliefs, and the beliefs that no longer serve us. And so moving on from that, I want to go into relationships really quickly before I end this podcast. So when do we let go of relationships that no longer serve us, right? We're talking about no longer serving us. So, and what I mean by relationships, I don't mean the person. You don't have to let go of the person. You just have to let go of the relationship you have with the person. And that's so cool, because when we think about letting go of people and letting go of relationships, we assume we're letting go of the person and we're cutting them out of our lives. Now, there are so many moments in life that you do have to cut people out, because no matter how much you try to evolve the relationship, it seems to never want to evolve. No matter how many nooks and crannies that you try to apply different methods to your relationship as you try to change it, it never changes. And then you have to ask yourself, okay, I tried everything. I feel like I've tried everything, and it doesn't seem like this is working. And that's okay, because people are meant to sometimes come into our lives, teach us a lesson, and then move on. And some are meant to come into our lives, teach us lessons, and then stay. And we have to be comfortable and okay with letting go of relationships that no longer serve us. And sometimes that means letting go of people. But that doesn't always mean letting go of people. It really almost always means letting go of our concept of this specific relationship. Let me see if I can give you an example of a relationship. Let's see. Okay, so like a relationship with my parents, I would say. So I had a relationship with my parents for up until about 6 years ago. And my relationship with them, I was constantly evolving it. I was trying new ways. I was introducing new ideas. Like I would bring them out to dinner so I can have a conversation with them as adults. I would bring up, okay, and then I do that for a little bit. And then they just wouldn't recognize it or appreciate it, or it just wouldn't really it was almost as if they were stuck in a bubble. And no matter what I did, they carried that bubble with them through every single circumstance. And so another thing I would do, I would bring up the fact that, when we were kids, we were abused, and, I wanted some sort of acknowledgement of like that's what happened, so we can move past it, because it was still stuck inside of me. And it was met with not aggression, with denial. And when somebody gaslights you, you start to almost question yourself. And that's one of the relationships after a period of almost 2 decades where I decided that I have to end the relationship with the person altogether, because the relationship is not going anywhere, and it was never going to go anywhere. And you think because they're your parents, you're supposed to somehow just keep making it work. And I applaud people who keep trying, because it is beautiful. But I also applaud the people who are brave enough to let go of something that does not work for them anymore. Just let go, even though it's so familiar. Sometimes we're so addicted to the pain, we're so addicted to it, we don't even realize that is not serving you in your current life. And it's actually taking away from you recognizing the beauty in other people, because you're constantly comparing it on a subconscious level. You're constantly comparing your new relationships to your old relationships on a subconscious level. And when we do that, we can never fully enjoy people. Okay, so that's the relationship with my parents. So I'll use one with one of my sisters. And so one of my sisters, she has a husband, she has kids and all that stuff, all that good stuff. So when we were younger, I took care of her a lot. And so I was, used to taking care of her, and that's just all I knew. So she was very submissive. She didn't want to be. I had to force her to be. And so we grew up, and our relationship evolved in so many ways. And when she started to pull away from me, I felt like she was pulling away from, my child was pulling away from me, because we had that sort of like that parent-child relationship, because we had to, because of the circumstances we were in. And so as we got older, we had to evolve our relationship. And it took a lot of work, because we were so accustomed to a very certain manner that we treated each other, that we realized that it wasn't working. So we took a break from each other, and when we got back together, we revisited the relationship, and then we evolved it, and we respected each other. And then the old habits came in, and like they said, that saboteur comes in your mind, and it tells you that no, this person doesn't respect you, this person doesn't appreciate all the things you've done for them as when you were a kid. And that those are the old voices that come in, even though you have a brand new relationship, an evolved relationship, that those voices no longer apply. And so I would use that as a way to, convince her that, she wasn't appreciating me, she wasn't respecting, my opinion, my values. And so we would separate again. And then we met up again, and then we had to revisit the relationship again, and seeing in our current life with her having kids and me being married, what does our relationship look like? It doesn't look like it used to look when we were single and we were just there. But you want to believe forever that that's how your relationships are supposed to be. And on some level, you do have that bond, but that bond itself starts to evolve. And then now in our current life, we have such a great relationship because I can say things to her, but now I'm saying it to a grown woman with children and with a husband. So it's so different. And because I was able to look at myself and say, how am I in this relationship? I mean, what is this relationship to me? I can now see her no longer as a child, as my quote unquote daughter. Now she's a grown person, and I trust her to make great decisions for herself and her family. And now our relationship is it's so much more, the communication is there, and it's more healthy. And I love that because it does take away the pressure of me having to always feel like I have to protect her, I have to be there for her, I have to make sure she's not falling down and getting her, like scraping her knee. And she did that because she was able to communicate that with me, and we were able to communicate with each other. So she helped me see that she's a grown person, she's a grown woman, she's in her own, she got this, but she still asks me for advice, and we're there for each other, but as adults now. But what happens on the opposite end is when you have relationships, especially sibling relationships, where you guys have these where one person's stuck in the past and one person's moving into the future, it becomes very uncomfortable when you have conversations, because you don't know, unless you're always with each other, that person's still in a past memory of a set of beliefs that no longer serve anybody in the family dynamic at all. And so when you approach them as adults, you're still sort of approaching a person who is in the state of mind of a child, because they still believe in these old habits and old beliefs that they haven't evaluated themselves. And so you're talking to them as a different person, but they're hearing it from the filter of whatever beliefs that they had when they were younger. And then so they didn't evolve in that respect. And so you're always meeting in conflict, and it's always met with aggression and anger and frustration. And through communication, you can sort of figure out where you both are. And at that point, you can determine whether you're going to evolve together or you're going to evolve separately. And it's so difficult because it sounds easier said than done. And I make it sound so easy. And again, these things take over a period of years because people are taught to communicate a very certain way. And when you evolve and change, or they evolve and change, and they communicate differently than what you're accustomed to, you're so confused and you don't really know. You get uncomfortable and you don't want to do it. You just want to walk away. You don't want the conflict in your life. But unfortunately, in order to grow, you have to push through that uncomfortableness, and you have to let them know that either we're going to evolve together and we're going to communicate effectively, or we have to decide that this isn't going to work anymore. And there's nothing wrong with that. And it's not saying you're a bad person. It's just saying we don't serve each other anymore. We don't even see each other anymore. And with respect to both of us, it's best that you go separate ways. And so that's when it comes to relationships. At least this is just what I believe. And please take this all like a grain of salt. These are just my little stories and my opinions on how I believe that letting go has become the new success. And because when you let go of things that don't serve you, you make room for things that do. And when we don't let go of things that don't serve us, we just always carry this weight with us for the rest of our lives and throughout our days. And we don't really allow people to come in fully, or we don't ever see our goals fully because we're too busy comparing them to the past. And trust me when I tell you, when we do this, we don't make room for new adventures, new successes, new goals, and new desires, because we're always comparing and contrasting our past to our present and possibly our future. And the only way to really know this is when you keep repeating the same habits over and over again and expecting different results, but not really getting them. And you just keep convincing yourself that just one more time. So some might argue that letting go is giving up, but I think that giving up is one of the hardest things. So it requires a lot of strength. But the best thing is to know when to give up and when to know you tried. And now it's time to move on and find something new and fresh and beautiful, because we're always evolving and always changing. And if you're the same person you were 10 years ago, there's a good chance you're stuck somewhere. So thank you guys for listening, and hope you got something from this. I'm done with my rant. And this is Manny. Have a great day, great week, great summer. I'm out.
I got a few questions. Questions. Where do you get your protein from? Isn't it expensive to be vegan? Questions. I got a few questions. Haven't we evolved to eat meat? It's natural. I got a few questions.
Shh. It's vegan.